What is up, clean freaks and filthy friends alike? Filthy Dan coming at you for another film discussion, and today we're going to be doing the 10 for 10 Horror Subgenre Tag. I was tagged by the J-Man Jason Nike. I'm going to tag a few people also. Their channels will be in the description down below. I will also try to make a card near the end with the information for their channels. The 10 for 10 Horror Subgenre Tag. I almost went and did my own thing with this, but I decided I'm going to just stick with the ones provided, as I found it posed a little bit of a challenge in terms of picking 10 films, and picking 10 is always a hard deal. But anyway, I went with the 10 subgenres that were provided in Jason's video, and let's get into these. The first genre we're looking at is the torture porn horror subgenre. Now, that's not a name I'm too particularly fond of. I get why they call it that, but that's a discussion that's neither here nor there. But if we're going to be looking at the torture porn horror, my go-to pick is going to be Saw 2. Now, Saw 2 is a really great follow-up to the first film. That's a series I'm pretty fond of for the most part, but the first film I don't feel really falls into this torture category, and the second one doesn't either so much. But I feel that if we're going with that, I think that the second one gives us a little more to chew on in terms of what we do get to see on screen. Of course, it was made, I think, with a little bit higher of a budget. They had a little more to work with, a larger cast, which means more kills, and I find myself going back to this one more than the rest, and I find myself going back to those pretty frequently. But Saw 2. Taking a look at the next genre, we've got the psychological thriller. Now, this was another one where there's an endless well of potential films that I could have put. But for psychological thriller, this is one that I think could cross genres into body horror, sci-fi, but it really is a psychological thriller at the day. That is going to be John Carpenter's The Thing. I mean, you've got the whole paranoia of who is the thing, who's not the thing, and it's really 90 minutes or more of mind games going on with Kurt Russell and the rest of the guys here at the Outpost 31. I mean, it's really a fucking mind game throughout the whole film. I mean, sure, we get these great gore scenes, but the psychological factor behind it, I think, really is what it's what makes this film, I think, really scary at the end of the day. It's not the gore that we see on screen, which is fucking beautiful, but it's really the psychological thriller aspect of the film that makes it stand out and makes it so strong and memorable. So The Thing for psychological thriller. For the next subgenre, we've got the slashers. Now, you guys know that is my bread and butter, and I'm tempted beyond temptation to not say Halloween, because while it is pretty much mostly a slasher, it's really more in the proto-slasher lineup. So if we're going for definite slashers, I narrowed it down to two options. There was, of course, The Burning, which you guys know is like my fucking go-to standalone. But the slasher film that I think really encapsulates that the best is going to be Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. You will get more of my thoughts on this here in the coming weeks, but what I will say about The Final Chapter is it does take everything that is essential to the slasher formula. You get the characters that you like, the characters you don't like, the maniac who's trying to kill them. You've also got great fucking gore provided by Tom Savini. There's a dreadful atmosphere. It's just a very well-made film, and honestly one of the best-made slasher films. So Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. Looking into the werewolf subgenre. Now, this is another one where it gets pretty hit or miss and I get picky with, and there's one that really just stood out. As soon as I saw werewolves, Silver Bullet was the first one to come to mind. It's absolutely fun, enjoyable little film. It almost plays out like a slasher too, so that I think gives it a little more favor in my court. And I mean, it's a Stephen King adaptation, so that gives it an extra set of oomph. But yeah, Silver Bullet is a pretty well acted little film. I know that the J-Man is also very fond of this one. I believe he picked this one for werewolves too. And yeah, Silver Bullet all the way for werewolves. Moving on to the vampire subgenre, we have another battle of two films. This came down to From Dusk Till Dawn and The Lost Boys. Now, both of these films I really fucking adore, but those of you who saw my 10 horror films that shaped my childhood video, you guys know The Lost Boys is going to run with this one. Mostly just for the impact it had on me as a kid and the revisitability of it. Where From Dusk Till Dawn is, I think, a funner experience, if that makes sense. There's really a lot going on with that, but it does feel like two movies. I mean, the first half is not even a vampire film, so it's a half-blood, if you will. But I had to go with The Lost Boys because, fuck it, it's one of the greatest vampire movies ever made for my money. Looking at the zombie subgenre now, this was another one where I get a little picky, and the picks that I did have it narrowed down to made it a little tricky. Now, you guys, again, if you saw the top 10 that I did with the impactful films on my childhood, you know that I picked Dawn of the Dead remake for that. But as far as favorite zombie film goes, I gotta go with Night of the Living Dead. I mean, I have a lot of fond memories with that film. If you saw the live stream I did with Robbie Sobel a while back, you guys know that it was a movie that me and my dad would watch together, and we just absolutely adored that film. I think it's one of the funnest to go back to. It's a very simple film. It goes by, it's paced properly, and it's in black and white too, and it's still a relevant film, is really, I think, one of the main reasons why it's so easy to go back to. Where the Romero sequels, while all great, there's just something about them that is not Night of the Living Dead. I mean, they're all great. I could have picked any one of Romero's zombie films here, but Night of the Living Dead, man, it started the zombie craze. It earns its place as my pick for the zombie horror film. Now, moving on to the paranormal. And this one was kind of a looser one, and I had quite a few different options to pick from. But since demonic films tend to fall into the paranormal category, I had to go with my boy, The Omen. The Omen is scary as hell. I think I could have easily gone Conjuring or Exorcist, but I think the whole thought of raising the Antichrist to grow up in a position of power is scarier than either one of those stories. Just because if you watch it with the right lens, there is sort of a relevance to it that really just makes your skin crawl. And I mean, the kills that we do get in that film are absolutely stunning. So it does have that almost slasher beat to it. So The Omen is an immediate win. You guys know that that's probably one of my favorite of the creepy kid subgenre too, if we want to even go there. So yeah, The Omen for supernatural paranormal films. Taking a look now at killer animals. Now, I could have gone with Jaws, as it is really the template for that. But there's one that I think mostly for its pacing and further plot simplicity I had to go with, and that is Cujo. This is one that I've really come around to liking a lot more since I saw it the first time as a kid. Like, it scared the shit out of me back then. But it's one that, upon rewatching it back in October, it's gone up for me, and it's still moving up for me. I really enjoyed Cujo. There's a sense of desperation to that film, where Jaws feels almost more like a summer blockbuster adventure film. Of course, in the second and third act more so, especially in the third act. Cujo, I find, sticks more with the horror genre, and I fucking got to applaud it for that. So Cujo for killer animals. Looking at the home invasion subgenre, fucking yikes. There's quite a few I could have gone with here. Your Next was a contender, but there's something about the one that I did go with, that is The First Strangers. It is simply because that film is scary as hell. It's one film that after I watch it, especially if I'm watching it in the middle of the night, I'm fucking terrified. I just can't. I cannot watch The Strangers after it gets too dark. If I'm ordering food, I gotta make sure I got that shit ordered and already delivered by the time I do start watching the movie, because bet your ass if I hear fucking DoorDash knocking while I'm watching The Strangers, it's like, go away, man. Go the fuck away. So The Strangers, simply for its impact, I think really gives it its place here for the home invasion subgenre. Now, going on to the science fiction horror subgenre, we've got, again, quite a few different options to pick from, but there is one that really just stood out as, I think, the winner, because it displays enough horror, but it also gives us just enough science, too. And I had to go with David Cronenberg's The Fly. The visual effects in that are fucking stunning. You've got a really tragic romance between Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. It's got almost everything that I think makes a perfect film, which is some blood and guts everywhere, a nice love story, and just a really dreadful, gloomy atmosphere. And this is more so for like romantic horror, if you will. But The Fly easily wins the science fiction horror subgenre for me. So that was my 10 for 10 on the horror subgenre tag. Here on the screen that's about to pop up covering me up is going to be the YouTubers that I'm going to tag for this challenge. Definitely would like to see what you guys got to pick for the subgenres. If you guys have already been tagged and done this, just let me know and we'll get that sorted out. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Please be sure to like and share this video, and if you have not already, go ahead and stab the fuck out of that subscribe button. And if you're feeling extra filthy, go ahead and let me know down in the comments below, what are your 10 picks if you do not have a channel that you run. If you do, hell, feel free to make your own video. I'd love to see that. But in the meantime, be sure to check out these social media links here. We've got the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Patreon, and the Stream Demons fan page over on Facebook. Be sure to check all those out, and as always, stay filthy.